If a man wears some Rick Owens Ramones, but no one around is tapped in enough to know that they aren't Converse, did he even really put that Rick on? For people who aren't really interested in fashion, the general consensus is that designer clothes are for flexing and not much else. Why spend £1,500 on a pair of luxury trousers handmade by a master craftsman in Italy when you can spend £15 on a pair which are also handmade just by a child or underpaid worker in a sweatshop somewhere in Asia? Oh wait, it actually turns out a lot of these designer brands are starting to mimic their fast fashion counterparts. Christian Dior and Loro Piana have recently been placed under judicial administration in Italy after investigations revealed alleged worker exploitation within their supply chains. Now more than ever, the facade of mainstream luxury fashion is crumbling. Wisdom K, one of the largest fashion creators on the internet, recently had an experience with one of the most popular designer brands of recent years that highlights just how far luxury brands have fallen. So, as usual, Wisdom decides he wants to spend what a minimum wage worker earns in half a year on a single shopping trip. For this specific $18,000 transaction, he goes to the Miu Miu store and leaves with a bunch of clothes. But as soon as he gets back home and gets them out, the buttons immediately start falling off one of the items. Okay, maybe that jacket's just a one-off that slipped through quality control, or the universe is just punishing Wisdom for being arguably the best dressed man on the internet, but still unironically deciding to buy this ugly odd denim vest thing for £2,200. But it doesn't stop there, as the zipper on another similarly priced jacket from the same haul also immediately came flying off. Naturally, Wisdom was not happy about this, so he made a TikTok talking about his experience, which, as you'd expect, got a lot of attention, and so Miu Miu sent him replacements. Can you guess what happened next?
Nothing crazy, just opening up the jacket.
In the age of internet shopping, fashion brands can very easily get away with selling subpar products, which could partly explain why luxury and designer brands have been more than happy to sell poorly made and low quality garments in recent times. But the decline in luxury fashion quality has actually been happening for decades now. TLDR, it's due to capitalism. Surprise, surprise. Luxury and high-end fashion used to be for the top echelon of society, exclusively for the most breaded individuals. The idea is you have these small ateliers that are operated by a family of skilled artisans that have honed their process over generations, or alternatively it has an innovative designer at its helm and only produces products with the highest level of craftsmanship and quality. Naturally, the clothes or accessories produced by these sorts of ateliers would be expensive and extremely exclusive. Their output was small, so their client base was small. This is how brands like Louis Vuitton and Hermes started out. But then people like Bernard Arnault came along and realized that you can take these once small businesses and scale them into mass-produced titans within conglomerates like LVMH, but still sell this idea of exclusivity, craftsmanship, and even heritage, even if the products don't really reflect that anymore. The bar has been set so low by luxury fashion houses in recent times that we've seen fast fashion brands swoop in and start posturing as being high fashion. While the self-devaluation of the luxury fashion industry over the past decades has created the space and opportunity for this to happen, I do think the main motivation behind this move is because of Shein absolutely mogging them in the race to the bottom tactic of outspeeding and underselling the rest of the market, so now they're trying out this new strategy. Regardless of the reasoning, it's happening and we've seen it really ramp up in recent years. It seems like the general tactic for a lot of fast fashion brands is to focus on making super minimal, inoffensive clothes. This is because minimal styles are easy to market and easy to pretend that they aren't fast fashion slop. Zara, Arket and COS do this sort of thing. But the fast fashion titan H&M is taking it a step further and is straight up cosplaying as being a high fashion brand by brute forcing its way into that space in the industry through aggressive and sneaky marketing campaigns. H&M recently did a runway show at London Fashion Week, which was paired with a big marketing push on social media. The discourse surrounding this was interesting to me because everyone wanted to talk about everything other than the dog shit clothes. Just because you put some fast fashion slop on famous supermodels on an eye-catching runway set and then pay loads of celebrities to watch it doesn't change the fact that all these clothes look like shit. H&M literally paid off everyone for this marketing stunt. Like, bruh, how much money did it take to get Wisdom to nerf his Chrome Hearts waistcoat down to a H&M one? I was surprised that I hadn't seen more people shitting on this whole marketing push on social media, but then I found out that's partly because this campaign also included H&M paying a lot of the big online fashion content creators and critics to make ads for them in the style of their usual content. I know that all these videos are very clearly ads, but it still shows that H&M are trying to pay their way into legitimacy within online fashion discourse, and they're probably counting on people not being bothered to go into the description of these posts and seeking out that hashtag ad. Even if these content creators aren't extremely positive in these sponsored posts, at the bare minimum they won't have talked negatively about H&M and their campaign to their large audiences, so regardless, these videos work as a net positive for the brand. It was kind of painful to watch fashion creators whose content is usually really good and insightful pretend like a fake scenario where Alex Kansani wearing fast fashion and a fake Labubu in between fashion shows is somehow an interesting and worthwhile thing to talk about. Traditional fashion media and journalism is heavily compromised by pressure from advertisers, which is why I think online fashion commentary is really valuable. But if one of the most ethically and creatively bankrupt companies in the industry can come along and pay for the voices of the biggest independent creators in this space, then it's kind of a step backwards in my opinion. So with fast fashion brands posturing as being high-end and established luxury brands starting to resemble fast fashion brands, I think we're starting to see a rise in quality awareness among fashion consumers. If you look back at the streetwear hypebeast craze of the mid-2010s, no one cared about how the clothes they were wearing were made or what they were made out of, they just cared that they were from certain brands or drops. A decade later, consumers are far more particular about the construction of their trendy clothes. I think the whole resurgence and popularity surrounding raw, selvage and Japanese denim is a good example of this. We've also seen leather shoes and boots becoming more popular, with people gravitating towards fewer or even one pair of good quality boots when years before they would have had a massive sneaker collection. Small and independent brands are finding success with slower and higher quality production because that's something that people want right now. The rise of designer archive fashion in the last 5 years has also served as an alternative to mainstream designer and luxury fashion. Why buy into the artificial scarcity from designer brands at retail when you can buy something from their most coveted and critically acclaimed collections from their past that is actually objectively rare? I have a lot more thoughts and opinions regarding the archive fashion aristocracy, but I think that deserves its own dedicated video. I think we are also starting to see signs of designer luxury fashion coming full circle and back to where it started. What I mean by this is, with more and more people becoming aware of how shitty a lot of modern designer and luxury fashion is, people are starting to desire artisanal clothes handcrafted in small ateliers or other slow fashion style production facilities. This, paired with how all black and more gothic looking fashion has become quite popular in recent years, has meant that artisanal avant-garde brands like Carol Christian Pole, Guidi, M.A. Cross and Isaac Salam are becoming increasingly more popular and recognized by more mainstream fashion audiences. This could be partly due to how the new wave of ex-underground rappers who are extremely popular right now are starting to wear these brands. Netspend, Fake Mink and Osama Sun have all been seen wearing Carol Christian Pole. Liverpool's greatest musical act of all time, SD Kid, has been seen flexing the metal spine of an Isaac Salam jacket on stage, as well as wearing this Carol Christian Pole bison leather overlock trench coat in the music video for his song Century. It would be funny if we see an Opium 2.0 type trend born out of this, but instead of Rick Owens and Chrome Hearts, it's CCP and other darkwear artisanal type brands. The insufferable Carol Christian Pole fans who have spent the last decade trying to gatekeep this designer would not be happy about that. If you're not into the darker and grotesque avant-garde stuff, then there are also many other designers who also do this non-mass produced artisanal approach to fashion. Two of my personal favourites are Ziggy Chen and John Alexander Skelton. So now that I've given a pretty broad overview, do I think that designer clothes are worth it? Well, first let me address the fact that I've been bouncing between the terms designer fashion and luxury fashion throughout this video. Designer and luxury fashion aren't technically the same thing, they are just generally used interchangeably because most of the most famous and popular designer brands are heavily marketed as being luxury. But you also have a lot of designers that don't rely on this label, as that's not their focus or main selling point. For example, Comme des Garçons would be defined as a designer brand because you would buy into that label for the creativity of the design rather than the idea of luxury. But at the same time, it's undeniably a luxury to own Comme des Garçons or any designer clothes for that matter. Designer clothes are not a necessity, which is why people generally view it as frivolous, but just because something isn't necessary doesn't mean it's worthless. I think fashion gets overly criticized and viewed through this absurdly utilitarian and pragmatic lens by a lot of people who aren't willing to apply the same attitude to other aspects of their lives. The same men who will look down on anyone who dresses unconventionally or is into fashion will also drool at the sight of any customized Japanese car, or will have a Fortnite skin inventory worth more than their rent. This is why buying designer clothes for external validation is stupid, because you can't control what people think of you or what you're wearing, no matter how much rick you put on. But what you can control is how your clothes make you feel in terms of both style and as a physical experience. While a lot of designer clothes are very expensive and some definitely do not warrant their price tags, I think the average person's idea of how much clothes should be worth has been completely warped by fast fashion. It is okay to spend more money on less clothes that will last you for years, if not your whole life, rather than treating fast fashion brands like a subscription service. There are also many other valid reasons why someone would want to buy designer clothes. It could be that they offer a style that you just can't get anywhere else, or even provide a wider style system. Buy less clothes, buy secondhand, and support small designers. That's the end of the video, goodbye.